Today is the final Sunday of the church year. On this Sunday, we proclaim an important theological truth, that Christ is King. The worldwide church announces that it will bow to Jesus, to only Jesus as the Christ. That there is no other allegiance more powerful than Jesus. There is no ruler, no person, no nation, or no other power. The title attached to this Sunday is Christ the King. Better yet, the reign of Christ. Today is a fairly modern festival by church standards. It was introduced in 1925 when the world seemed to be falling apart. The world's great empires, the British, American, Spanish, French, German, Russian, and Japanese empires, were all either engaged in war or soon about to go to war. During this time, the Pope of the Catholic Church, Pope Pius XI, wrote a letter in which he dedicated to Christ the King. And in the letter, the Pope reminded leaders of these great empires that God is present with the whole human race, even those who don't know God. Could there be a more timely observance for us to remember and reflect on, given the events that have occurred this week, or within the last month, or even year? We think of the catastrophic attacks on civilians in Paris that claimed 130 lives, or the 224 victims aboard the Russian jetliner that crashed in Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. We think of the bombings in Beirut, or a hotel in Mali. We think of a civil war in Syria that has produced millions of refugees that the world is currently stressing about. And the increasing number of protests during this last year here in the United States over the excessive use of force of some police, particularly against persons of color. We live in a world dominated by the view that violence is the only answer to violence. And at the end, we know that result produces only death. So yes, church, you and I need this Sunday to reaffirm whom our allegiance is to. The reign of Jesus Christ is a reign of love. It's a reign of sacrificial, supreme love in its genuineness and fullness. Our allegiance is to only this one who lived nonviolently, who taught humility and compassion and mercy and selfless giving. This Jesus who forgave his enemies, who embraced the outcast, the refugee, those poor and struggling who were at the margins of life. This is the one that we proclaim as King, as ruler. But if we do so, church, then we are faced with another question. How is it that we shall live? The gospel proclamation for today draws on Jesus' response to Pilate's question, "Are you the King of the Jews?" The caricature of Jesus that's portrayed in the Gospel of John is that Jesus is the one who is coming from God, going again to God, and is, throughout his ministry, aware of his identity and his origin as God's own. He carries out God's will or mission according to his hour and even Pontius Pilate, the one whom Rome has put in charge to govern over a people Israel, will not in the end have any power over this one named Jesus. So our lesson today opens with Jesus being brought before Pilate on trial into the praetorium of the temple. Pilate will ask this poor peasant, this whipped and beaten man, "Are you king?" And then later in the gospel, in a final act of humiliation, Pilate will construct a placard and nail it to the cross above Jesus' head. A placard that reads, "King of the Jews." On this final Sunday of the church year, we pause to consider who or what has power over us, who has authority over our lives. That's an important question, because that question may not be answered with words as much as it is actions. What has authority in our lives means what claims our time, our passions, our resources. What voice gives us direction in life? Who do we turn to for wisdom? I am so deeply grateful for you, Bethany Christian Church, for your witness of peace in the larger community. I think that we have in part listened to the voice of Jesus, who continues to give us wisdom and guidance in this world. We have 22 people who are currently involved in a new group called Explorations. And this group seeks to build bridges of care and compassion to the larger community. Now we are learning about other religions and celebrating what we all share in common, not what divides us or how we're different. I see many of you here at the church many days a week, and I know how committed you are with your time and your resources in following the way. Bethany Christian Church is a community that's devoted to feeding the hungry, to counseling the lost, to give hope to those who are without hope. We provide space for the larger community to come and meet and gather like Scouts and Alcoholics Anonymous and the Bethany Women. We've resettled 6 refugee families, 29 people in total during the last 9 years. We've given them a new start, albeit a scary start, because it's never easy or comfortable to begin a new life in a new country, to learn a new language, to start over. But it is a chance at life, perhaps free from persecution, possibly death. There isn't one of us, given our ministry to those refugees during this last decade, there is not a one of us that should question the acceptance of refugees getting a start in this new world. Jesus said, "Welcome the stranger, even as I have welcomed you." The conversation between Jesus and Pilate recorded in today's lesson should not be read carelessly. Pilate will ask 2 questions that throughout time have elicited many responses from his followers. Pilate will ask Jesus, "Are you the king?" And later Jesus will ask Jesus, "What is truth?" And how we answer those 2 questions will speak to how we understand the identity and mission of Jesus that we attach titles to, like not so much king, but Lord or Christ or Savior. Exactly what do we mean by those titles? Because it was these exact titles that were used of the Caesars of the Roman Empire. To affirm the lordship of Jesus is to deny the lordship of Caesar. It's as easy as that. What does that mean, however? Well, it means in Jesus' day and in ours too, that the empire of power and control is contrasted with the empire of the powerless and those who lack control. According to Jesus, the story of salvation isn't about individual success. It's not about titles becoming king, or about power or national supremacy, or political clout and status, or social and cultural superiority. The way of Jesus is a way that is shaped by compassion. Love is supreme. The way of Jesus employs a strategy that includes forgiveness and reconciliation. And its mode of operation is humility and service. What is truth? There's a lot we don't know about the truth. We ask questions of each other all the time. What happens when we die? What is the afterlife like? Is there an afterlife at all? What's God's expectation of my life? What's the meaning of life? These are fun questions. Do we have the truth to any of them? No. We have plenty of questions about the truth and the faith that reveals it. And for now, we have to be content to know that God opens our minds and our hearts to Jesus, who demonstrated power through weakness, who showed strength through vulnerability, who established justice through mercy, and to build a new empire different from Caesar's by embracing a confused and chaotic and violent world, taking pain into his body, dying and rising to remind us that good will triumph over evil, that love is stronger than hate, and that with God, things are possible. So, I want you to affirm with me on this last Sunday of the church year that Jesus is indeed King. Jesus' power and authority directs our life, provides us with wisdom, and through us brings change today and forever. We invite you to become a part of a community that seeks to reach out to the community and to the world in ways that will bring transformation and change.